So hello everyone, I'm Caroline, I'm the founder of 50inTech. I will tell you a few words about the 50inTech mission for the people coming from Station F or other networks. We are a community and matching platform to support women in tech in their journey. We are connecting female entrepreneurs with peers, VCs, open innovation department, and women working in the tech industry with companies engaged in diversity to boost their career. We know we have a huge gender gap in tech, and it's one of our mission. We are a startup based at Station F, the world's biggest startup campus based in Paris. And this conference is co-organized with Station F and dedicated to our both communities. As an early stage entrepreneur, I'm basically struggling with the same problem you are struggling with: how to continue selling our product, how to close our seed round after, for friends, 4 months of strikes, and now a never-ending COVID crisis. Since we are all lost in the middle of COVID, we have decided to open the door to the post-crisis period, to first feel optimistic and stay strong, we need about that, but foremost to see more clearly the solution on how best to use the few weeks to win the battle for our companies. We must remember that female entrepreneurs have strong assets. We are focusing more on sustainable models. And Roxane Varza, the director of Station F, just shared a letter with the Station F community, and I fully agree with what he said. Focus on sustainable growth, not unicorn status. The current situation shows us that it's more important to build durable, sustainable, and recession-proof business than to chase valuation before value. Life could return to normal, but we can already see that we entered in a new world. Our new world. This is the title of the last report of Mary Meeker, general partner at Bound, one of the most influential VCs worldwide. And we will share with you the big trends of this report. I think it's super important to know about the future of business. The outcome of this conference will be about adaptation, go-to-market shift, and fundraising strategy. And to advise you, we are glad to welcome two amazing speakers today. Kim Walsh, Global VP Sales at Hubspot for Startup, and Geraldine Le Meur, General Partner at The Refiners, Serial Entrepreneurs, and Angel Investors. So Kim and Géraldine, I will let you introduce them yourself. Perhaps Kim, if you want to begin.
Sure, thanks Caroline. Thanks for having me on today. Really excited to speak to all, entrepreneurs and especially female entrepreneurs during this time. So thanks. A little bit about me. Like Caroline said, I work at HubSpot. I run our HubSpot for Startups division, which our mission is to help millions of startups grow. I'm originally from Canada, so I think that's always worth saying. I reside now in Boston, Massachusetts. So looking forward to talking to you all today.
And Géraldine, please.
I would say good morning because I'm based in San Francisco, but I'm going to Paris at 5 p.m. So I'm Geraldine Le Meur, French and American entrepreneur based in San Francisco since 2007. And I did a lot of things in entrepreneurship and always trying to help the ecosystem, especially when I co-founded Le Web, which I run for 10 years. In Paris, bringing all Silicon Valley to Europe and trying to inspire, trying to create a platform for success for entrepreneurs. And following up with Le Web, I co-founded The Refiners. So my mission with The Refiners over the past 4 years was a very boutique fund and program with the same mindset. It's just like making it happen, understand the Silicon Valley mindset, and creating great companies. So I'm delighted to be able to chat with you today and help if I can.
Thank you very much. I will give the voice to Gaëlle, my co-founder, just to give you the rules about the Q&A and the chat part. So Gaëlle, please, can you tell us a little bit more about the Q&A tool, please?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone again. So you've got the Q&A area at the bottom of your screen. So ask any question, especially there. You can discuss, and it's super interesting to have you discuss on the chat area. So you can present yourself, say where you're working, what type of company. But please ask your question in the Q&A. and upvote for your favorite so that we respond to these at first. And just to let you know, we are recording this session and we will be sharing it on our YouTube channel and platform, as well as some resources that we are sharing after each conference. I'm sorry, I've got my kids around, so I will mute my microphone just now.
That's our daily life. Mine in front of the television with the door locked. No, I'm joking. But so we will continue the session. Thank you very much, Gaëlle. And so basically, I will ask the first, and then you have the time to give you the time to ask your own question. So really feel free to ask everything in the Q&A tool. So we're talking about growth versus profitability. Not long ago, the consensus was that growth was the paramount, the single most important metric for a company, especially for VCs in Silicon Valley. And we are seeing new rules, and the profitability now the VCs are taking that in consideration. And so the first question is, do we have enough cash? So my first question for you, Kim and Géraldine, will be, what would be your first advice to early stage founders in terms of sales, perhaps for you, Kim, and in terms of cash management for you, Géraldine? So perhaps you can begin, Kim, and then we'll give you the voice, Géraldine.
Sure, sounds good. So on this, taking a sales lens approach to it, right, around cash management is obviously you want to have enough cash on hand so you have the longest runway you could potentially have right now, right? So a lot of that means, you know, how are you bringing on customers, and what are you doing to your existing customers, right? So first things first, your existing customers, if they're paying customers, listen to, if they're not paying customers either, you know, have a customer first approach, listen to your customers, do everything you can for your customers right now. If they stick with you through this, they'll be, you know, with you for the long haul. And I think companies that are really taking a customer first approach and try and have a long-term lens on this, you know, customers just really appreciate it right now. Flexibility and adaptability as you know, speak to your customers, I think are two really good principles to follow. But that's all great, right? What if you have 5 paying customers and you need more customers during this time? We talked a little bit about a couple approaches. So one I would just say is, you know, lead with empathy around 2 key parts as you're talking to potential new customers. Number one is dig into, you know, what are they going through personally? How has their business been affected? How are their job roles being affected? And then 2 is from a business perspective, you know, dig in there. How's that being affected? And if you take an overarching lens, again, this is focusing on sales specifically around how can I help you and how can I help your business during this time? I think it will be really received in a positive way. And a lot of people right now have challenges, have problems that they need great technologies and great people to help them with. So there's a lot of that going on. I think, you know, if you can have that lens and go in with how can I help, and understand the problems that your potential customers are having, I think you'll be in good shape.
Géraldine, you want to add something about that, or?
No, I totally agree. I think your customers are really your best. I mean, your best source right now. You really need, and I fully agree with what Kim just said. It's just like you have to rely on them to learn, to understand which way we are going. Nobody knows, and they are probably the best source for you right now to understand what you have to position on your product, what added value you can add on your product, and it will eventually lead you to growth and adding more customers. So be very, very close to them. That also means giving more resources, like with webinars, with learning sessions, added content. Customer support, I think is key right now. There are a lot of questions about deliveries and how, so all those things, focusing on customers and what you have right now, is very important. I also think that early stage startups are not in the worst situation compared to other companies. Of course, if you have cash on the bank account, because you can always, as an early stage startup, set up the rules of your company and be very pragmatic. You're not in a situation where you have to act on things with like tremendous difficulties on doing it. So you should pause for a moment, assess what's happening in the company, listen to your customers, and then be very, very pragmatic about, as you said, the cash and all the things you have to do.
Okay, perhaps a question, we were talking about how to be helpful. I think at Hubspot, you change your strategy to become really helpful for startup, and your Q2 strategy change. You can perhaps give us a little bit of how did you do that, and perhaps how can some startup adapt that to their customers, Kim?
Sure. So I think you said it right there, Caroline. It's adapt, right? So Geraldine, totally agree with you as well, right? Early stage startups have the ability to adapt quicker than later stage companies right now. So what we've specifically done, our marketing team, granted, I realize we're in a fortunate position, is they were able to pivot. So they had a Q2 plan, they had a Q2 strategy that they put on hold, right? They took time, as Geraldine was mentioning, to assess the current situation. And what the marketing team did specifically at Hubspot is put together an Adapt 2020 plan. Like many companies that we're talking to, they're seeing an increase in demand and an increase in their online learning. What's happening right now is sometimes, you have the ability to take a step back and say, okay, I want to upskill myself. So if you are a startup that has a learning center or that has helpful content out there, what we're seeing across the board is people looking for help and people looking to learn more now than ever. So a little example for us, I can give you a statistic, is that we have what we call our HubSpot Academy. We've seen over the last 45 days or so an increase of 80% in terms of the demand coming to take our certifications and take the online courses, to upskill themselves in marketing, sales, and customer success. So, I realize, again, HubSpot's in a little bit of a fortunate situation, but if any of that is relevant to you as a startup founder at the stage that you're at, think about the type of content that you have created and think about how you can help and educate people that are looking for those topics right now.
Yeah, before the session, we had questions because we have early stage startups. So sometimes you don't have a lot of customers. So is that really hard to reach people, new people now, new customers? And do you have like any tips to give us? Because sometimes you don't have the pipeline of customers, such as Hubspot, of course. You are beginning with 2, 3, and you need to reach out new customers. It's not a good time for that. We know that. So, but
yeah. So I think that shift has kind of been happening over the last couple of years, right? It's been harder than ever to reach people, and you have to reach people at the right time with the right information that's going to help them. There's increasing tools to sift through the noise, and I would say right now people don't have a ton of patience, right, for receiving inputs that just doesn't help them on a day-to-day. So what I would say about that is, as you think about your, maybe an SDR or BDR strategy or cold calling or cold reach out, it's really hard to do that right now, arguably harder than ever. So as you think about sifting through the noise and capturing and being helpful, some tactics that I've seen some early stage startups do that I think are helpful that I'll share are adding chat to your website. If you don't have that, 70% of people coming to your website right now are looking to learn. They're not looking to buy. So how can you educate them? How can you understand via, chat what the people visiting your website who are essentially interested in your products or service, what questions do you have, and how can you answer them at the time where they're willing to learn? So chat is a really good example that we've seen there. A couple other ones, which are some really good sales tactics that people appreciate, is following local updates and local news, for example, like innovation publications, or, you know, if someone's raised funding right now, which is definitely happening, you know, reaching out to them, congratulating them on their recent funding, and letting them know how your product or service can help them essentially reach their audience faster, or whatever your product or service does. So, you know, just being really, again, empathetic, but smart around who you're reaching out to, when you're reaching out to, and how you're reaching out to them. And a tactic that has just been really cool to see is adding chat to the website, and essentially shifting some of those resources from, like, if you, let's say you do have 1 or 2 BDRs, to putting them to being called like a user success coach, or a helpful person, you know, managing the chat. We've just seen that to be really beneficial right now.
And Géraldine, yeah, thank you very much, Kim. And Géraldine, you are really a serial connector, super connector. And I was thinking about more people are really involved into communities. Is that a good strategy to go into new communities, or communities to leverage a network of people to really have recommendation, warm introduction?
I think it's always good as long as it's genuine. We are not in a moment where you are kind of pushing some content just for the sake of pushing content, or I think we will see a real shift into like the show-off culture, and you see that on Instagram now. I mean, people really want to get back to the roots. We are really more into marketing, into pull. So as long as you genuinely want to reach out to people, as the engagement is high level with them, I think it's really meaningful for the company. So if I take an example around me, I have this company founded by Elsa Jugman, Elsie Beauty. And she's now sharing her knowledge. She's a PhD, so she knows a lot about dermatology, about your skin, and she's now sharing in online her knowledge about how to take care of your skin. And yeah, eventually she will engage people to get into buying her products. But for now, she's really like into like this level of engagement on other platforms, not only on their website or with proprietary webinars. So my answer is yes, go if you want to connect genuinely.
Okay, thank you very much. I will take a question from David. I don't know, we have only one question, so really please ask more. Hello, do you have any example how the hotels and tourism companies are dealing in other countries? So I don't know. I think it's I think it's a nightmare everywhere. But do you have an experience about that or not? If not, we are
no.
And Kim,
it's just challenging.
Yeah, it's challenging. So sorry, David, that's not exactly. We will organize something about tourism and hotels, but to be honest, we know that that at this moment the travel tech are in a bad position. It's really they are struggling, and we can see that about Airbnb example. They are really in a complicated situation. So time to go to the second part of the session. Yeah, Victoria, we will go through the angel investment part after. So is that a good time for a go-to-market shift? Pivots, plan B. So we know that everything is uncertain. We talk about the startup flexibility. Do you think it's a good time to change everything and to adapt, you say, but to change all the go-to-market strategy at the company? And perhaps, Géraldine, I know that you have a story of a startup who just fundraised and decided to change everything.
Well, actually, yeah, I mean, they didn't really decide to change everything, but they were about to launch. And because of the domino effect, this company cannot even operate. I mean, it's not about what they do or what they want to do. It's just that the suppliers are not working anymore, that anything, I mean, everything in their supply chain is just broken. So at one point, you need to be, again, very pragmatic and say, okay, how much do I have in bank? And maybe just think very from scratch and say, okay, is there a way I can, it's not even pivoting, it's just, is there a way I can rethink my company where this domino effect won't affect me for the next month? So starting from scratch. And of course, you need to involve your investor in this kind of plan, because they need to be on board with you and be partners, not just quote, quote, investors. So it's not about a plan B or is it a good time to pivot. It's just like, okay, assess what is around you, what is happening. You already have a service and a product. Does this product fit the markets? How? Maybe you were thinking of a go-to-market or a product market fit in a way 3 months ago, and now it's totally different. So I think the first thing to do is kind of a diagnosis. It's just like, okay, stop, pause, 1 minute, a little bit more than 1 minute, but just like, okay, where we are now. Do we have the same potential customers? How do we serve our existing customers? What do we have to change? Maybe we were thinking of our product or service in a way which is not relevant at all anymore, but we can use it in another way. And that all the questions the entrepreneurs has to assess with the team, because the team is very important in that too. You have people around you involved in the company, and you have to put them on the same page, and this is very important.
So communication is key with your investors, with your team. It's a key asset you need to have during. Dialogue, communication, trust. You have to build trust, again, it needs to be genuine. I think pragmatism, genuism. I mean, we don't know. We don't have a crystal ball. We are not card readers, and of course, what we think is okay today might not be okay tomorrow. So, if you putting in place a framework, you have to reassess this framework maybe every week, and say, okay, this is what we were thinking last Monday. Where we are now, is there something really going on pretty well? And then reassess with a lot of communication and dialogue. Thank you, Géraldine. Kim, you want to add something about the shift and so the go-to-market adaptation?
I think I agree with everything you guys have said. And Geraldine, you have a lot of experience here. I think maybe I would just add, transparency is key. I think vulnerability, right? Like if you are a startup founder right now and you're reaching out to someone and you're having an honest conversation, you're like, listen, I just would like to take this opportunity to share with you, maybe how we're struggling or how we're thinking about something. I would just say be transparent, because everyone loves to help, especially in times like this, right? Like helping feels really good. So if you're a startup founder and you can be vulnerable and you can be transparent and you can ask someone for help, like that dialogue might actually, end you up in a way better spot than you thought you would. I've seen that happen so often over the last 30 days, which I think it's kind of a silver lining. And I just think, if we all operate under the principle that everyone likes to help, and we can help more now than ever, everyone wants a startup to win, and innovation needs to happen right now. So I would just add, I think it's a good time to help, to ask for help, and I think it's a good time to help.
Yeah, we have a question. From Elsa. Hi, do you have an example of successful shift from growth model to building a profitable business in direct to consumer? Do you have any idea about that, Géraldine or Kim?
No direct example.
No direct example.
I could maybe share one in terms of a company that I advise and help. It's called The Bridge. It's basically an app a medical app where you can actually record, transcribe, and share a doctor-physician visit. It really shifts the information to be in the hands of the patient. And what happened during all of this is they realized that, doctors and patient visits weren't happening in person anymore, but the need was still there to record, transcribe, and share and understand what happened in that, physician to patient interaction, where now they've shifted and launched with some healthcare organizations to actually record, transcribe, and now share via an integration with Twilio, that interaction that now happens virtually as opposed to in person. And the demand for them has just been crazy, right? So as you think about that example as a founder right now, it's, you went out and you built one app that was about physical, interaction in a doctor's office. Now all that's happening virtually, can you adapt? And the answer for them is yes. And, the demand's coming in, they're forming interesting partnerships. So that is a direct to consumer approach in sort of phase one. But now what's been happening is there's an opportunity to now, almost go directly to healthcare organizations, which really kind of like, this shift happening for healthcare organizations. I think a lot of us felt that it's a little bit stale and, doesn't necessarily solve for the patient first. So I just think there's some really exciting things happening in healthcare right now that are just, mandating a shift in how we operate. So I could share that. Yeah.
We have a question from Frank, a little bit related to that, but it's talking about the French market. So I don't know if, so for you, Kim, it will be complicated, and for you, Géraldine, now you're more in SF, but I will tell about the question if you have no idea, and perhaps you can precise, Frank. I work for an health tech company in California, but lived in Paris for 3 months until the pandemic spread. Do you have any insight into how the health tech industry is responding in France? So perhaps, Frank, you can tell us about why you need to know more about, especially in France, if your startup is in California. I think we will need more information about your question to really answer well, I think. What do you think, Kim and Géraldine? No, we need to have more information.
But well, a Kim example was in
good
that
one.
field. And I think what we saw in France is that with telemedicine, as they call it, and that evolved like in a matter of days. I think they put kind of a law or so that you can have all this video chat with your doctor. So France is no different with other countries. I mean, they will take the pace. The only thing is always to be very cautious with all the GDPR and all this stuff. So privacy and all the constraints you may have, maybe a little bit more in Europe than we have in the US, which is not quite of true in the health matter, and certainly not in California. But yeah, I think there will be a huge shift in this and a lot of opportunity in this health industry, tech health industry at all.
In the report of Marie Meeker, it's really clear about that. So we'll share you. I think, Gaëlle, if you can share it in the chat, if you have any possibility to share it, I think it's super important. And after on the platform, we'll share it, but it will be like for our community, and I will share it also on the Station F Slack. We have a last question about the first topic. So from Elena. Hi, what would be the best investment during this period for a small company? So if we need to invest in something, I don't know, it will be in people, in, I don't know, fidelization of your customers. Any idea, Géraldine or Kim, about that?
I think we have highlighted it. Invest in your customers. Invest in your current customers if you have. And in people, I mean, in your team right now, but because I really see your, I mean, customers right now, and the loyal one, the one who will, as Kim said, the one who will go with you through the crisis as your best source of information and that will have a ripple effect on what you should do on your product, on your services. So best investment for me would be, I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about learning. It's just like learn, gather information about your company. A lot of feedback. The more feedback you can get with mentors, with people, it's just like all this transparency Kim mentioned. It's just gather information. So invest into gathering information, and then see what you will have to do for the coming month, and do it fast, obviously.
I agree with all that too. Maybe I would just add one kind of like tactical example that I've seen some founders of small companies, or some small companies do pretty well right now, is I think you have, if by taking the definition of small company, I'll assume that you have some employees. I think it's a really good time to take a pulse check on your culture and your employees, and really take care of them during this time. Sending out a survey, asking them, how they are liking working remotely. If you're a technology company, you can do that. I think, based on some of the statistics coming out early on is, I don't think this is an example of remote work, because you're kind of forced to, not really do anything else other than stay in your homes in some geographic regions. But, how does distributed work feel for your employees? I've had a bunch of conversations with founders where they're saying, our engineers love it. Our salespeople kind of miss each other, but if you are a small company and you are a founder, this is a really interesting time to take a pulse and a survey on your team, and the people, and maybe adapt, moving forward. Again, we don't know what the future is going to look like, but I think this gives you an opportunity to say, like, the way we're working today, does it give us some added flexibility that we actually like as a team, or is it not working?
We have a question from Kevin about culture. How would you compare startup culture in the US versus other parts of the world? So it means Europe or Asia. Are work rules in Europe a problem in creating a US style startup culture? So I don't know what is exactly a startup US style. So it's a Silicon Valley startup style. So depending of the startup culture, that startup culture have some problem about diversity and everything. So if we want to replicate exactly, perhaps we can adapt in Europe a new model. But I don't know, Géraldine, perhaps about the comparison about the culture in startup in Europe and in the US, because you know well.
I'm not really sure, Kevin, what you mean about the startup culture. I think. For what I see, I think the culture in startup now in Europe, France, and US is, it's kind of ramping up, and it's not that different. I would say the most important is really about the values. Why are you creating? Why you created your company? What are the values, and that are kind of the ground for what you are building with your team, with your company. Your vision, your mission. So back to those roots. I'm not sure if you can be a little bit more specific about what you are trying to find out.
So we'll come back later. We have a lot of questions about fundraising, and I think it's time to go into this topic, especially because we have Hugh, Géraldine. So I will just go to the last part of the conference about fundraising strategy. We have a question about the angel investing. So perhaps you can talking more about is that a good strategy to reach out angel investor at this moment, or VCs, and perhaps you can give us your point of view, Géraldine. It's perhaps time to do a little bit of pedagogy about where comes the money from the angel investors, and are they money enough to invest now?
Well, that's a good question. So as far as angel investing is concerned, obviously the money comes from people who earn money. So when you turn into angel investing, it means that you've been successful somehow, and you decide to help and also to invest your money in people you think they will do great companies and will be successful. As far as right now, you have to understand that also angel investors don't have the money like just in a box that they open and say, okay, I threw a 50K check today to a company. When you do some angel investing, it means that you are releasing one investment somewhere to put it in the company, even though you say, okay, this year I will invest 100K in startups. The market is getting a little bit better than what it was 3 weeks ago. So I will change a little bit my views on that, but never forget that if you were asking for a 50K check maybe six months ago, it's kind of meaning now that you are asking for an angel of 75, maybe 70K check. So yeah, the money is coming from somewhere, and this somewhere is another investment. Usually, what is that? It's just like something you can get cash out of. So I think you will still find angel investor investing, but maybe not right now. So the good strategy is to approach them, trying maybe to get some mentorship to the people are really happy to help, get them to get in touch with you, understand what you were doing, and then it could trigger a good relationship eventually with an investment later on, or maybe with a small check now saying, okay, I see that you're really struggling with your company. As an angel investor, I really want to help because I think you are onto something. I understand where you want to go. I like, there is a lot of human connection into angel investing. So I like what you're doing, but we can't meet each other. We have to do on video. So I will do a small check now to help you kickstart what you're doing or maintain what you are doing, and maybe later on investment. So again, engagement, relationship, being very transparent, as Kim mentioned, is exactly the same. And I think those values will be more and more important right now, even with VCs.
Okay, and perhaps we can talk also about VCs now. We have a question from Delphine, and I think it's more related to VCs. Do you think it's worth keep trying to raise money at the moment with them? And until when shall early stage startup wait? So Kim, you were talking about VCs, but perhaps we have a different situation between Europe and US, and I don't know about that. So Kim, you were talking about the VCs in US, a bunch of VCs. You want to talk about that? I will give you the voice.
Sure. So I think Twitter is a good place to go if you're looking at a specific VC, right? Like if you are a startup founder, I think it's a really good idea to do your research on what type of VC you want to pitch to. Do your values, does your value proposition, does, your product or service match what that VC typically invests in? I think, so first, the website is a really good place to go. And then second, I think Twitter is a good place to go as well. I know, a handful of VCs, caveat, they are in the United States or North America, are saying they're sharing what they're doing right now, right? So I would say a bunch of them have said, step number one is, we're working with our portfolio. We're helping them first. Step number two is we're also helping other founders that are in our network. Again, people love to help. So they're just doing that. And then number three, they're meeting new founders and taking times to continue to, virtually meet other people and other great innovators and builders. And then number three is, a lot of VCs have posted on Twitter that they are writing checks and they are still open for business. So I would say, again, my answer isn't like it's a one size fits all strategy. I think it depends on which VCs you're looking at. And then I would just, share the caveat that I think as a founder, it's a really good idea to make sure you're also picky in what VCs you're looking to pitch.
Géraldine, it's perhaps easier for early stage startups than Series A. The check is bigger, is higher, so the expectation too. And at the moment, with the profitability was not perhaps so much easy. Perhaps it's easier to raise an early stage, so seed or pre-seed round now. What do you think about that? With VCs?
I don't think any stage is easy right now. A lot of companies are doing bridges, especially those who are not early stage, because they have to maintain the business. They have already a lot of operations going on, and that goes back to what we were saying. It's easier for an early stage startup to pivot or to adapt. So, no, it's not easy. I would say as a global advice is if it's not a good time to start a fundraising. Is if you are really from scratch and you have not reached out to any VCs, didn't get any feedback yet, and you were about to start before the crisis, I don't think it's the right moment to start. If you are in the middle of a fundraising and you already had initiated good contacts with VCs, and you had already feedback and you know where you are going, you have this conversation going on, and it might be a good moment to share with them and to see what you can do, what are their views. It's also a good moment to test them, to see if they are falling into the bucket of, wow, this is a VC I don't want to work with given what feedback I just got, or wow, they seems to be amazing partners. I love the feedback. I learn a lot from what they say. There are many VCs, as Kim mentioned, that are putting a lot of content online, and also were very vocal about what they're helping and financing companies. Let's take an example with NFX. NFX released, like, it's a Silicon Valley VC, early stage, very focused on network effect and growth, and they released, like, probably last week, a fast track where they say, okay, put your pitch online, and we will give you an answer and feedback, which I think is very important, within 9 days. First round capital has been also producing a lot of content to help. So yeah, I wouldn't initiate a fundraise now, but if you were in the middle of the bridge, just reassess and follow on, see what you can do.
Yeah, we have a question from Kevin about the bad behavior. Reported about VCs and so they are trying to sometimes undervalue the startup at that time, or doing some how do you say that, they are just not answering at the end of the closing, and so what do you think about that, about VCs who are taking advantage of the situation on startup, and what can we do when we need the money and we need to close? What can you do with this kind of situation? Saying no. What kind of advice you can give to founders who are living this kind of situation?
Well, to be honest, this is not VCs I'm talking to or I know, because I think if you see such bad signals, for me that would be wow. I mean, when you getting on board with a VC, it's like a marriage. It's a long-term relationship. It's not a one shot. It's not a bank, right? It's just someone who will sit on your board, and so if the crisis triggers that kind of reaction from your potential VC, then it's a really bad sign. And despite the fact that you really need the money, I mean, just ask yourself the question: is this someone long term that I will want to get advice from? have on my board? Is this someone I will be able to, I mean, to have a nice conversation on a monthly or basis about my business? I think that's kind of, for me, it's like wow, no go. Despite the fact that you need the money. I mean, it's really important. So if you have this kind of reaction, just like, it's just like, okay, thank you, but I don't think we will be able to partner together, because for me, being a VC is really a partner relationship. It's not a bank. A VC is not a bank. It's not someone you borrow money from, and so you need to be very aware of what you are doing with them.
We have a great question. I don't know, Kim, if you want to add something, tell it. Huh? Okay, say hi, Caroline. I want to add something. So we have a great question from Victoria. What are the services you would like to see available right now that could you procure from, like, really as an investor, you really want to invest, like really now? It could give us, as an entrepreneur, great advice and perhaps a great insight, even for pivot. Why not?
Maybe I'll
go
go
ahead, Kim. No, go ahead.
Go, Kim, go.
Well, I think what helpful information out there is, I mean, if you haven't discovered Mary Meeker, she just released, her and her Bond Capital just released another report. You know, take a look at that report. It's data driven. It on page probably 12 or 13, maybe page 14. Between that, like, she talks about, and they talk about specific areas that if you're an entrepreneur right now, you know, here are the 4 key areas where there's opportunity. So, you know, I would say be resourceful, because those types of data and reports are out there from, you know, leading researchers and leading investment firms that, you know, they're writing them. And also Y Combinator, they have a really great blog that they put out a call for, you know, here are the areas we're looking to invest right now. So as opposed to me answering that question, I would actually, you know, just sort of give credit where credit's due and say, like, there's those 2 specific web assets. If, you know, I would study those right now. And those would be some good tips.
So I share with you the report, because I don't know if my team have it, and so I will share it now, because I think this is the report that always everybody is talking about the last days. So I think it's a must read for everybody here. We have a question for you, Géraldine, about, I don't know if you can answer about it, but it's about the refiners. There's like new fleet. We have Jamie interested to join the fleet 6. Do you have any insights
about the refiners? Yes.
Yeah. The program, and she would so love to apply and having more information.
So the refiners mission is done. We have finished the investment period of the fund beginning of last year. I was not involved in raising a fund 2 because I'm thinking of what I'm doing next, but not within the refiners. And my co-founders at the refiners have decided that it was not. I mean, the alignment was not right for the fund 2. So there is no more fleet, and the mission is over with 55 investments with the fund 1. So I'm sorry, but there will not be a fleet 6 for the refiners.
Okay, so no fixing, but perhaps any advice you need, you should perhaps apply to YC or yeah.
You could. There's so many. So you mentioned YC. YC is doing. I saw this morning that YC is doing the summer session remotely. You have Village Global, which is an amazing also accelerator. I mean program, because I don't like the word accelerator. You have so many great resources right now, but yeah, top of mind would be Village Global and YC.
Okay, I don't know if anybody have another question. We have still 10 minutes together. So perhaps Kevin precise the question, but I don't know if I will say, to be more precise, can I make workers work 50 hours a week? So this is the startups. This is a US startup. So one of the part of the report of Marie Meeker is about work-life rebalance. So I think it's important for you, Kevin, you need to read it. So Géraldine, do you have any advice, Kim, about working more than 50 hours a week?
Yeah, I guess I would just say, I would really be careful. Again, it's about taking care of your people right now. You know, people have gone from, you know, sort of being able to walk around in your office talking to people to, you know, sitting in a Zoom or a virtual marathon, sitting in the same seat in the same, you know, room or house or coffee table that they're not able to leave. So I think our lives in terms of velocity have just like exponentially increased. I know I personally feel it. Things feel, you know, coming at you. It's crazier. It's, you know, I think there's going to be an opportunity to figure out like how we rebalance this. I would just really caution, you know, going a little hot and heavy right now on hours worked. I think a lot of people are feeling a little bit overwhelmed.
Mm. Yeah, and it's definitely not about, I mean, that's kind of weird. I mean, it's just like, I think people in your team will be genuinely involved, and maybe you should explore like multi roles, or like multiple ways of them helping, but they might not fit into one box right now, especially if you are an early stage startup. So so you might discover that someone in your team has great abilities on something, and that could really help, and you didn't know about it. So it's more about like knowing people, discovering what we can do together as a team. I don't really see the point of like saying people working 50 hours. I'm not at all on the 35 French thing, and being an entrepreneur, I've not been counting my hours. But don't forget, everyone has a life, and it's your company, of course, and you're not counting your hours. But I mean, that's my point. I think it's more like people wanting to help, but it's not about hours.
It's kind of related to my last question. I would love to finish with this new world and the impact of the startup world. I think the startup world was sometimes a little bit archaic and not really centric about what would be helpful for the people and the planet. And I would love to hear you about that, about the new startup and the mission-driven startup and the impact they can create on the world. I don't know if you have any idea about that, but for me, it's to feel optimistic that startup can really participate to a more fair, sustainable world today. Any, Kim?
I know it's interesting, right? It's like I don't think it's a new normal. I don't think anything about this is sort of normal. How will we adjust, and how will the startup world, you know, make an impact? I think it's promising. I think the startup world, you know, has the ability to be a little bit more flexible, right? I think also, you know, Marie Meeker in her report mentioned, you know, businesses that are less than 30 years old have a really unique opportunity to take advantage of, you know, globally, everyone is moving at a really fast pace right now. Change is happening daily, weekly. It feels really fast. So as you think about that as a startup founder, you know, we think there's a lot of good that can hopefully come out of this, and you know, you can hopefully narrow in your focus on working on something that is a little bit, you know, more positive. I think the term essential worker has just been elevated to a whole new level. So as you think about, you know, what type of business you're creating, is it helping? I think what's kind of been a really interesting look is that we are able to say, okay, like what is really impactful right now, right? Like healthcare, education, online, virtual, distributed work, you know, collaboration. Those are sort of like 4 areas that have all just kind of hit us in the face, whether that's good or bad. And we're gonna have to adapt. And I think there's a lot of opportunity to do better.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a defining moment for a generation, right? So I think it will affect also big companies as much as startups. So right now you really have to think your business in being like efficient. I think going back to you know, those rules of the purpose, the vision, the mission, the why, and is really core. And I want to be optimistic. I hope that there will be a long-term impact, not like, okay, we get back to the routine and what we were doing before, as we see on sustainability, as we see on pollution, as we see all those things that evolve so fast as we shelter in place. So I want to be optimistic. I would be cautious though into jumping in trends. Who knows if after that crisis we will still want to be that much behind our screens? If we will need I'm navigating into this big I don't know, and just trying to see what is the best pragmatic approach. And I think overall, all the companies that will still be here after the crisis will be in a good position. So now it's time to learn and to be ready to push the green button when things get back into a new normal. There is also this great essay from Mark Anderson. He published, I think yesterday or the day before. We say, ask yourself about, so it's very focused on the US, but bottom line is ask yourself, what are you building? What do we build? And I think this is very impacting. Is what are we building right now? What is the world we want to create for the next years ahead?
So thank you very much for being with us. We have a question. Yeah. So bang, I don't know. So we have a question from Jenny, and I will perhaps connect with you, Géraldine, after, because she's asking a recommendation and advice to apply to American incubators. So if you have any advice and if you accept this connection, I will do it. Okay, for Jamie. And bang, last question, Caroline, do you have some news about the impact of the COVID crisis in the African startup driven by the women of your network? Bang, I don't know, but we have a lot coming from Nigeria and Victoria. So if you want, I can ask to the network and connect you with other founder. So please, Bang, you can write me an email. It's Caroline at 50intech.com after the conference, and I would be pleased to connect you and to have information about the impact. I know a lot of startups in health tech, and one in Nigeria is Victoria. She was the winner of the Female Founder Challenge last year at Vivatech, and she built a blockchain startup to focus on the traceability and transparency for all the I'm forgetting the name. Medicament, please, Géraldine, help me.
Drugs.
Yeah, drugs. Thank you. I'm so French. So drugs, and I'm sure that the growth is really important at that time. So if you want, I can connect you with some founders. So thank you very much, Géraldine and Kim, for being with us today. We will publish this video on YouTube, so you can see it and share it in replay. So thank you. Just we will send you a feedback survey. Feedback is so important for us, so please answer. It will be tomorrow morning normally, and we'll have another session about fundraising, because this is definitely the hot topics and everybody are asking to meet VCs. So we will have Valentine Barbelivien from Founders Future Seed Fund based in Paris, and Deepali Nangia, an angel investor from UK, and she's also advisor for female founders, so for early stage startup. So thank you very much all, and I say goodbye and stay safe and strong, please.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Yeah. Bye.